I'll soon begin streaming. Let's see. What about the sun and the moon and the seas and the stars? La da 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 da. What about the sun and the moon? That's right. Just dismissing some alarms. Da 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 da. Lonely is the night. Alright, so the alarms won't go off for a while. Are you done? I really need to. I'm sorry, I really need to get a background theme or something. Phone's not charging. There we go. And now it's not charging again. Alright. It is charging. Good morning, everyone. This is Generic Fool's Test. I am... One second. Yesterday I remembered to do... Last time I remembered to do this, but, 1 second. Resetting my position. There we go. Oh my god. So professional. I can't believe it. So, I am generic. This is Generic Fool's Test. I am going to be reacting to The Primitive Nature of Russian Propaganda by Paper Skies. I've covered him before on my... I've reacted to him before on my channel, and actually, he's a content creator I enjoy watching his videos for. Though, I've stopped watching them because... Well, one of my most popular videos I've reacted to on my channel is one of his videos. So, you know, I decided I'm going to try to react to any of his new videos I haven't seen on my channel. And without further ado, I'll get started. Alright, and so it begins.
In this episode of Paper Skies, we will...
I'm wearing my headphones, but I didn't plug them in. Oh boy! I am a genius. And you think you have everything ready, and then you forget one of the most vital parts. Hi person, how are you? I hope you're doing well. 1 second, I'll check my messages. 1 second. Okay. It's good to hear that you're doing well, person. Yeah, sorry, I was just messaging somebody quickly. Um, so I'm covering a video by a guy named Paper Skies today, and were you here when I accidentally realized when I realized I didn't plug in my headphones? Oh god, I'm so stupid. But either way. And so it begins.
We'll discuss. Is it wrong to compare the Soviet Union and Germany? What part of the human brain is used to resist propaganda? What is the cheapest wallet jump? What was the most memorable episode of my trip to Moscow in 1986? And finally, what is the name of my new channel covering the history of Russia? As you can see, today's video is not quite the usual, and you bet it is indeed not. This video won't have the usual aviation story, although this episode is in a way an afterword to my previous video about the Soviet Tu-4 bomber, as some furious comments prompted me to make this video.
Oh.
Of course, there were many more positive.
The Tu-4 bomber is the one I think I covered and I reacted to. Actually, 1 second, let me check to make sure. No, wait. First, I'm going to be right back. Want to make sure I'm not full of crap. Oh, wait, never mind. I did react to it, but my most reacted video is the most legendary man on D-Day. Or wait, that's of this period. I got 111 views? I'm sorry, but that's or that's on YouTube. I know that's a tiny number, but for someone like me who's basically, throwing my I'm throwing my messages in a bottle in a sea of messages in a bottle. And I'm making my messages in the bottle look uglier than everyone else by not editing or, actually putting a proper, title or, what is it? Either way, I'm just sort of impressed, especially considering I don't advertise this channel to people I know. So the fact that it's sort of organically getting people to watch makes me sort of happy, especially since I've been more tired of not streaming a lot lately. I really want to try, but my problem is it seems like every time I say, I promise I'll stream more often, then I end up, something occurs and I stream less often. Mind you, I think the average length of time people get into my videos is 5 seconds. But, still, people are willing to take a chance. That's more due to the content that I'm reacting to. So, it's more just me using the fact that people love the fat electrician. But either way, let's get on with it.
Comments, which I appreciate and am truly grateful for. The video about the Soviets copying the American bomber has gained good views by the standards of my channel, of course. In fact, the number of views is higher than usual. In just a month after being released, the video brought in more new subscribers than most of my older videos do in years. More importantly, after its release, the video was reviewed and confirmed to be suitable for YouTube, something that doesn't happen very often. All in all, everything is going well. I could not ask for more. The reason for the current video is some viewers' reaction to my statement in the previous video about the US and Britain deciding to unite with a lesser evil, namely the USSR, to defeat a greater one, though it is debatable whether it was indeed the lesser evil. I got quite a few comments in regards to that statement of mine, which I have decided to address. I will use this particular comment as a reference, as it combines together.
It is debatable whether it is whether of less it was a lesser evil. Let's see, sorry, being a bit of a grammar bad person, sorry. Well, actually, he's going to probably
all
react
the matters that I want to discuss. I have long been accustomed to and quit paying attention to various angry comments, usually left by one particular ethnic group or race. My apologies. According to recent trends, this is now a race, not a nationality. By the way, it's funny to see this comment under a video telling how the Russians bluntly copied an American bomber without understanding the technology, and here the Russians in comments are mimicking Western blame words without understanding the actual meaning of the words. Anyway, this time I noticed that some of these comments weren't like.
Also, person, I'm sorry I'm not engaging with you much. This is a half an hour long video, and I remember that oftentimes my 15-minute videos take over an hour to get through. So I'm sorry I'm not engaging much. Oh, I didn't even see that you were making the little thing. Also, some of your messages aren't appearing on my chat once again, so sorry about not doing the pop when you did it. I did not see it. Alright.
Left by Russians, but by people from, let's call it the
And I hope you're
civilized
feeling
part
better,
of the
by the
world.
way.
So today I'd like to discuss every part of this comment, including inner repressions, the gulags and all that shit, and of course comparing Soviet Union to Nazi Germany. But don't worry, I'm not going to drown you in boring numbers or heavy citations. No, we will operate with some straightforward and comprehensible matters and facts that even an idiot can understand. And the definition of an idiot is...
So I'll finally understand his videos. Oh my. A video meant for me. Alright.
What I suggest we start with. To save some time, I simply took the first result that Google provided me with, so here are the 5 signs of a stupid person. The reason I start with this definition is an expression that I highly recommend you learn. Propaganda doesn't make people stupid. It is made for already stupid people. This expression applies to all kinds of propaganda, but especially to Russian propaganda. Unlike...
Well, from what I've heard, sorry, from once again, I'm going to be putting in, another thing. Propaganda, if you're too stupid or too ignorant, propaganda apparently doesn't work on you because you don't try to think about it. Propaganda also works on people who are, ignorant, but not completely ignorant or not completely stupid. Stupidity and ignorance is different. Everyone is ignorant of something. But for some people, a lot of people who think they're immune to propaganda are very susceptible to it. Like, I know a number of people who normally are intelligent, but when it comes to certain things, they are 100% drinking the Kool-Aid, as the kids say today. Man, I'm an old man.
Like, let's call it Western propaganda, which due to media freedom has to use...
Or at least, no, they said that 10 years ago. Jesus, those kids are adults.
Use tools like half-truth or selective truth. Russian propaganda mostly consists of outright blunt lies. These lies are usually very easy to verify, but a huge number of people are incapable of even that. Why? Check the signs of a stupid person. The good news is that the ability to resist propaganda, although varying from person to person, is nonetheless inherent in everyone. Therefore, whether one believes in Russian propaganda, or in other words, whether one chooses to remain an idiot or not, is always a personal choice. This judgment is based on a recent study by...
Well, it also sort of depends. In countries where it's hard to access information, especially accurate information, it can be difficult. For example, a poor farmer in a not well developed country doesn't exactly have a ton of free time to go to a library, or may not be able to buy a smartphone. And even if they have a smartphone, they might not be able to get very good data, and they may not have the time or effort to do it. Learning should be something that everyone has access to, but unfortunately that's not really the case.
by scientists of Sambridge University, who assessed the brain activity of more than 1,000 Russians in response to official statements from the Russian government. It turned out that the difference between those who blindly believed Vladimir Putin and those who saw his statements as complete idiocy lay in the activity of one specific part of the brain called the imbecilamus. Oh, I almost forgot about the fifth sign of a stupid person, a complete lack of a sense of humor. Very important.
So let's see. Blind faith in the matter. I was just like, thinking they know everything, divided. Well, there's actually a term for people who don't know things that believe they know more. And that is the Dunning-Kruger effect. Person, have you heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? I can't remember, but I may have told you once. Or at least that's what it's called in America. Oh, you haven't? Okay. Okay, so the Dunning-Kruger effect is a effect which is a tendency that people who are more ignorant of a subject tend to think they know more about that subject than they actually do. So, for example, there's a lot of people who are just like, oh, well, I can just do this stuff on my own. Like, I can totally do, my electrical work on my own. Oh, I can totally build a house on my own. Oh, I can totally do this. Now, there are people who say it but don't mean it, but then there are people who are just like, how hard can it be? And a example, I guess, that's given is, have you tried the using invisible ink? I believe it was that using lemon juice you can write down things which will be which will have the writing be invisible, unless I guess you expose it to flame, in which case it becomes visible. Now, I can't remember the guy's name, or if this is the person that it was named after, or if Dunning-Kruger is the name of two people who came up with it. But basically, a certain person who was about to commit a crime, heard about this and decided that, oh my God, how could nobody think of this? If lemon juice makes writing invisible, then if I coat myself in lemon juice, I will be invisible. And so they did, and they proceeded to rob a bank. It is hard to believe, but it is an actual thing. Actually, let me just... One second, in private window. Let's see. Yes, you see. On January 6th, 1995, MacArthur Wheeler and Clefton Earl Johnson robbed two Greater Pittsburgh banks at gunpoint without attempts to disguise themselves. Instead, they had covered their faces in lemon juice, believing it would make them invisible to security cameras. Well, I mean, you're saying that as a joke. These people seriously believed it. It's so dumb. Just so unimaginably dumb. But funny. Anyways, back to this video.
Sorry I missed it earlier. Let's continue. In people who believed Putin, the imbecilamus became highly active, releasing huge amounts of happiness
Yes, of
hormones.
course, the
In
imbecilamus
contrast,
doesn't
those who
exist.
didn't believe the Russian propaganda experienced a brain reaction that suppressed the activity of the imbecilamus, accompanied by a feeling of a great discomfort, similar to the feeling you experience when someone takes you for an idiot. Another important thing was that these occasions of the brain suppressing the imbecilamus often left a lasting memory due to the level of discomfort they caused. I can personally relate to this as I vividly remember the first such situation that happened to me way back while in Soviet elementary school. We used to have so-called singing classes where we would learn and sing together various Soviet songs for children. You know, those ones about a happy Soviet childhood,
Oh
with
my,
the sun
suddenly
and
more
the
people joined
sky,
in.
and then those where we would sing how we would all happily burn to ashes, fighting for the cause of our beloved Vladimir Lenin. Anyway, one of my favorite songs back then was the song Legendary Sevastopol, about the city where our grandfathers fiercely fought in many battles, glorifying for ages this impregnable city. Here is the song. Great song, amazing music, easy to memorize poetry, a highly skillful, without any exaggeration, piece of Russian propaganda. It is indeed, until you're done with singing and go to your history lesson, where you learn that throughout its entire history, Sevastopol has never withstood a single enemy siege. Every single historical episode where an enemy besieged Sevastopol, whether it was the Crimean War or World War II or any other war or conflict, the enemy sooner or later conquered Sevastopol. Literally every single time, with no exceptions. And here, for the first time, I felt the imbecilamus.
It's important to note that if you want to look at something that is hilariously bad, look up the naval history of Russia and the Soviet Union. Like, it is just insane, some of the things. Like, I don't want to spend too much time going into it because it will take too. It's better to watch a dedicated video. It's hard to believe the level of just like hi, foil hats. It's been a while. How are you doing? I'm watching Paper Skies. Have you heard of this channel? Well, yes, but if you can believe it, they're doing better than they have in the past. Like it's just the trip they took to Japan to try and like fight the Japanese Navy, and just the journey in particular I'm talking about. Okay, but do you know about the journey I was talking about? Because at the start of that journey, as the fleet was leaving the harbor, the king of Russia told a sailor to send a message to the admiral of the Armada, and tell him that he's been or like the leader of the Armada and promoted to admiral. So the guy went there, and as he was sailing there, the Armada thought, while they were still basically in their own territorial waters, that it was a ship from Japan, and the entire fleet started firing at him. And you know what happened? They all fucking missed. Oh, Tsar. Tsar is the term. The Tsar of Russia at the time. You're right. It's a very different term. But either way, they fired, and the guy still got to the ship and was like, "Oh yeah, hey." Well, I mean, they can hit buildings. And that's not even the worst part of that story. It gets worse, if you can imagine. But I'll react to a video about that, I think, at some point. I don't know. Yeah. And a lot of historians basically agree the Russian Navy is and the Soviet Navy is cursed. And some of the better ships in the Russian Navy were built in Ukraine, because that's where they built a lot of shipyards. The Moskva, which sank a few years ago, was a ship which was supposed to belong to Ukraine, but they stole it from Ukraine. It was even finished being built, but they still just took it and brought it to Russia before Ukraine could separate from the Union. That's why it's had problems. But either way, back to the video.
Activity in my brain. I understand that back then some of the children may not have been aware yet of the exact meaning of the word impregnable, which is okay, they were still in school after all. But making this song the official anthem of Sevastopol, I think tells you something about the Russian nation. Or race. I mean race. My apologies once again. But the Sevastopol story was just the beginning. To be honest, studying history in school was one of the most memorable experiences in this regard. At the beginning of almost every section of our school textbook, we were once again reminded that the Russians were the most peaceful people on
Two
earth.
people left.
We didn't need a single piece of other nation's land, yet by the end of the chapter, we had to learn and memorize the new, expanded borders of our peaceful homeland. It was especially challenging when studying the so-called Great Patriotic War, known in the civilized world as World War II. On the one hand, we were once again the most peaceful nation which had been dishonorably attacked by Germany. Despite that, however, after suffering some losses, we managed to fight back and liberate not only our beloved motherland, but also other countries previously enslaved by the fascists. Yet somehow during that liberation process, our country once again became bigger. And I don't mean the countries that fell under the Soviet influence, but the actual borders of the USSR, the only allied country whose size increased compared to the beginning of World War II. Of course, it was explained to us that living in Russia was so great that everyone simply wanted to join us. In this regard, one particularly interesting section of school history was the so-called inclusion of Siberia. Not conquest or colonization, but specifically inclusion. The fact that during this historical inclusion the indigenous nations of Siberia were either significantly reduced in population or simply ceased to exist was not mentioned either in school history nor in any other version of Russian history up until today. And not that we weren't aware of such terms as colonization, enslavement, and extermination of indigenous peoples. We knew them perfectly well from the chapters covering the European colonization of North America. Cementing those narratives was the movie industry, particularly the so-called Red Westerns or Easterns, films produced in Yugoslavia and East Germany about, as we call them, Indians versus cowboys. Those movies were extremely popular. To put it in today's context, being Chief Winnie-Two in our boys' games was something like being Spider-Man or Wolverine today. Jumping into water as a cannonball was fun, but not as cool as a Chief Atzeola jump. And I'm telling this as one who has completed hundreds of such jumps, which I'm starting to think now may have.
I would appreciate dads and my creativity making this costume, especially the fringe cut from our curtains. Oh, that's cute.
Have somehow affected my imbecileness. Anyway, I can go on and on with my personal experiences, but my main point is that moments of feeling like you're being taken for
everyone's least favorite mustache model.
Russian propaganda will happen to everyone, regardless of their age, education level, ethnicity, or anything else. The only difference is each person's capacity for how many such situations they can tolerate before reaching the point of enough is enough, allowing them eventually to recognize and resist Russian propaganda. And everyone will eventually reach that point when learning Russian history, because as I mentioned earlier, Russian propaganda is made for idiots and is largely based on simple lies that are easy to disprove. Unless, of course, no changes are made to these 5 points. And now, keeping in mind everything that we just discussed, let's go back to that comment and compare Nazi Germany with the USSR. And while we do that, try to notice if there is any discomfort in your brain. As I promised, today we discuss things in simple terms, and fortunately, there exists one universal set of values that we can use to make a simple comparison between the Nazis and the Soviets, no matter your attitude to those systems. It is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was adopted as a common standard for all peoples and all nations, and commits nations to recognize all humans as being born free and equal in dignity and rights, regardless of nationality, place of residence, sex, color, religion, language, or any other status. In fact, this declaration was developed as a response to the atrocities committed by the Nazis during World War II. In 1948, it was accepted by the United Nations, with 48 members voting in favor and 8 abstaining. It would seem that the Soviet Union, who proclaimed itself as a defender of those oppressed and enslaved, would be a primary promoter of the Human Rights Declaration.
Nope.
Yet out of those 8 countries that abstained in the voting, 6 were the Soviet Union and its satellites. Moreover, in the USSR, that very best country in the world, the Declaration of Human Rights was considered illegal, and distribution of the declaration or even its excerpts would result in arrest and imprisonment for anti-Soviet propaganda and distribution of false statements that discredit the Soviet state. It was only...
That is pretty funny because, the communism is supposed to be about everyone being equal. But, a lot of Soviet states and a lot of Soviet countries, or, communist countries rather, the communist countries, tend to not follow human rights.
Only on September 5th, 1991, that the Declaration of Human Rights was adopted by the USSR. Just to remind you that 3 months later, in December 1991, the USSR ceased to exist. This was, by the way, the first test for your imbecilamus. Did you notice anything? Anyway, as I've promised, we won't bury ourselves in complex peculiarities of the ideologies, but rather talk about some straightforward matters understandable to pretty much anyone older than 16. And the first...
Well, yeah. The problem is they have a vice grip now on news sources. And I mean, to the credit of the Russian people, the other thing is fear of the government cracking down on you is also another thing that prevents you from going against propaganda. Well, all the media is basic, or at least, now especially, all the media is basically just subservient to the government. Which, that's not good. I mean, it's not good when there's too much freedom of the press either, because then they also start lying. America has a bit too much freedom of the press. And I'm not trying to say that as, like, oh, I don't like hearing things I don't agree with. I mean, the fact that Fox News is able to outright lie, and then every time they're sued for lying, they're like, Fox News is not a real news network. We are, we're just making shit up. And then go back on and go like, oh yes, we are a verifiable news source. And when you're able to outright lie about stuff, and people are just like, well, I can't say anything because that's their opinion. It's just kind of, well, not kind of, it's bad. I don't know, this country is getting worse. It's going, both sides are increasingly getting more and more extreme, or becoming more and more extreme. And it's harder to find middle ground. Talking with one of my left-leaning friends, and I'm trying, I call out a lot of the issues on the left, and, well, my friend gets angry at me because he's like, why don't you talk about the things that Trump does? And like, everyone's talking about Trump. People won't shut the hell up about Trump. And the news networks that you listen to will not stop talking about Trump. So of course I'll talk about other things. Just because something isn't as big doesn't mean that it shouldn't be covered. And you can be critical of something and also, you know, be in support of what the thing is supposed to be in support of. My example is, I believe in the LGBTQ plus community. And I believe in their rights and their ability to pursue happiness, but the stuff they're doing, like with the gaming industry and in movies, where they're just basically going, white people are evil, and I believe the ham-fisted, bludgeoning propaganda that they use is so terrible that if you had told me this, showed me that stuff when I was younger, I would have told you that there's no way anyone who believes in that group of people would support it. It seems more like anti-LGBTQ plus community propaganda made by the right. Because anyone with a brain would be able to tell that you're just making that group of people look worse. But you know, I have learned that there are dumb people who don't understand and don't have self-reflection. But either way.
This matter I want to talk about when comparing Nazi Germany with the USSR is that you could leave Nazi Germany. Yeah, pretty much up until the beginning of World War II, you could just buy a ticket on a train or a steamboat or a plane and simply leave Germany. You could sell all your belongings, your property, buy a foreign currency, and use all that money to leave Germany and start a new life in another country. Of course, that's not an easy decision to make, but at least you had that choice. Meanwhile, in the USSR, that would have been simply impossible. The fact that there was no private property in the USSR and thus you couldn't own or sell it is fairly well known. A less known fact is that possessing or exchanging foreign currency was illegal, and depending on the decade, it could lead to either imprisonment or the death penalty. As for leaving the USSR, let me tell you a short story. One of the most well-known and glorified figures in Soviet history was a border guard named Nikita Karatsupa. Poems and songs were written about border guard Karatsupa. He was celebrated in countless books and movies, deservedly so it seemed, as during his service in the 1930s, hero of the USSR Nikita Karatsupa personally detained 467 people attempting to cross the Soviet border, 129 of whom he shot dead. What Soviet propaganda conveniently omitted was that the most of these border violators weren't trying to break into the USSR, but were actually trying to escape the so-called Soviet paradise. Leaving the USSR of your own will was a crime, and starting in 1935 it was punishable by death. Interestingly, that same year the Soviet government passed a law extending the death penalty to minors as young as 12 years old. How's your brain? Any tickling in the hypothalamus area? It seems that in light of the Declaration of Human Rights, in particular article...
Yeah, and sorry, I didn't see your message, like, sell tinfoil hats, about, like, they smile when their neighbor is taken away in the night. They may even, like, volunteer information, saying, like, oh, this person is treasonous. That's the thing that they did with people they don't like. But to the party, it doesn't matter. If you can get sent to a gulag for the mere implication of it, then that will make people more afraid and more willing to report others, as well as to, you know, try to stay in line, as they say.
Article 13, the Soviet Union wasn't that good of a country. One might even say it was even worse than Nazi Germany. But let's continue. Another difference was that when the Nazis came to power, they significantly changed the political and ideological structure of German society, while leaving the economic foundation largely unchanged. Yes, big businesses had to adjust and cooperate with the new regime, but for the average person, nothing much changed. The typical factory workers continued to work as they did before. The peasant kept working on their plot of land just like before. Small businesses carried on with their usual operations, and professionals like engineers, teachers, lawyers, or scientists continued providing their services. Most important.
There you go. Ah. Yeah, well, a lot of people like to talk about the Soviet Union like it's a paradise, even outside of Russia, because it's one of the largest Soviet countries in the world that ever existed. Oh, I mean communist. Sorry, communist. Man, why I keep saying that? Like Soviets have communists, but they're just like, it won't be like all the other times. It's just waiting for me to take charge. They don't explain why is it that if it was such a perfect place did everyone keep running away? Or why did a lot of people try to escape it? Like in the hero that he mentioned.
Importantly, workers were still paid for their labor, and if they didn't like the work conditions, whether it was the pay, the location, or anything else, they could simply find another job or even choose not to work at all. These seemingly basic conditions, which most of you take for granted today, were not available to Soviet people at all. In the USSR, quitting a job of your own will was forbidden, and starting in 1940, it became a criminal offense. On June 26, 1940, the Soviet government passed a law titled On the Transition to an 8-Hour Workday, a 7-Day Work Week, and the Prohibition of Unauthorized Resignation by Workers and Employees. According to this law, quitting a job or transferring to a new one was only allowed with the permission of the state enterprise director. Unauthorized resignation of your own will was forbidden and punishable by up to 4 months of imprisonment. Moreover, missing a workday without a valid reason.
Kintalopet, welcome to the stream. Watching Paper Skies. How are you? And thanks for the follow. Yeah. Well, it's also sort of funny because I should really react to the T-34 video made by Laserpig, because the amount of stuff that they cut back on during when they were making the T-34 during World War II was crazy. Wait, you love what game? I have a perfect follower count? 4. According to me, it says I have 4 viewers. Kinetopet? Oh. Oh, sorry. Old man here. I don't know that game. I'm sorry. Wait. 69 followers? It says I have like 4 according to the Twitch stats. I mean, I wish I had 60. I mean, what? Oh, followers. Okay, followers. Oh, followers. Yeah, sorry. Follow. I thought you said viewer. You got okay. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Wishful thinking. By the way, thanks for following me, Kinetopat. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I got very, very excited for a second there, but yeah, of course not. If I get like that many people viewing in like, you know, the next day or two, then it's clear that I'm using bots. Oh no. Have you seen the wait? I'm sorry. I have to react to something quickly. Let's see. Yeah, all right, great. Let's see. Where is it? Wait, where is he? Okay, I guess it's this one here. Is this the one? I think it is. Where it talks about Krieg. Like this will make sense when I show it. Let's see.
I don't know the dead man. Probably didn't deserve what he got.
Let's see.
Doesn't make him special, though. All kinds of people die out here. The innocent.
Well.
And the not so innocent.
Well.
If I'm lucky.
That's
he
Krieg.
hasn't noticed me yet. I want to warn him. I want to tell him to run, to hide, to get out of sight, so I won't have to kill him. That's what I want to say. What actually comes out of my mouth is, I have the shiniest meat bicycle! Close enough. This is me. I'm ready for a spine tingler. Yeah, great. Hey, remember back when we were sane? She can taste the bloody hatred. Guess not.
I'm guessing I should probably skip to the part. Yeah, I'll skip to the part. It's soon, but let's see.
Oh God, she's armed with a Molly 1 SMG. She's a vault hunter.
Yeah.
She's a siren warrior who could kill me with her brain.
What the hell? Is that a psycho?
She's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Tell her she's as gorgeous as 1,000 sunsets. Tell her you need her help. Tell her to rescue you and care for you. And whatever you do, do not scream the word poop at the top of your lungs. I'm the conductor of the poop train! It's over, idiot. You're gonna die here and now, and the last words out of your mouth will have been poop train. Oh, great. Now the rats are arriving.
Well, yeah, so basically that's just my thought, like, well, don't say, whatever, say, don't do the poop train, poop train, poop train.
I'm still 3
Oops, sorry. But either way, back to the video that I'm supposed to be reacting to.
Was punishable by a correctional labor for up to 6 months with a 25% reduction in wages. Just a month later, in September 1940, the law was amended to include a provision that, in case of repeat offenses, the term of correctional labor would be converted into a prison sentence. Additionally, being late to work or returning from lunch more than 20 minutes late or leaving work early by the same amount of time was now considered a missed working day. However, even these measures...
Alright, well, I hope, thanks for coming by. I hope you have a great day, Foil Hats. Bye.
were deemed insufficient, and 4 months later, in January 1941, the law was further expanded to punish workers for refusing job transfers, including to lower paying positions, as well as for refusing to work overtime. Just to
Actually, that reminds me of another thing that I think it was Paper Sky. I can't remember if it was Paper Sky or Sark, or what is his channel's name? Setarko said, where a man was received an award for his outstanding service, which he was made to attend, but because of how late the party ran and how much they made him drink, he showed up late to work the next day. and as a result, he got in trouble because he had missed work due to the fact he had to drink and attend his awards ceremony. Which is kind of dumb, but that's just the type of thing that went on at the time.
Remind you, it was still a peaceful time and the USSR was not yet in a state of war. After the German invasion, the law was updated by increasing the term of imprisonment from 4 months to 8 years. Essentially, with the passing of that law, the Soviet people were now tied to their workplace for life, which, if you look at the legal definition, was nothing other than slavery. According to a report by the USSR Attorney General Viktor Bachkov, less than 2 months after the law was passed in June 1940, more than 1 million violations were submitted to the courts, of which over 900,000 resulted in conviction. This law remained in effect in the USSR for 16 years, during which 18 million people were convicted under it. Just think about that number. 18 million people convicted for not wanting to work at their job or for being 20 minutes late to work. And it's important to clarify that in 1956 it wasn't the law itself that was repealed, but only the prison sentence, which was replaced by wage cuts. However, Soviet citizens continued to be tied to their workplaces. It's no surprise that in the USSR the Declaration of Human Rights was considered illegal, as its articles regarding working rights and slavery simply break to pieces the glorious image of the world's first state of workers and peasants. Any tingling sensation in your brain, by the way? You know, when I hear Russians angrily arguing that comparing Nazis and Soviets is unacceptable because they are not the same, I agree with them, though only to a certain extent. There are indeed significant differences between Nazis and Soviets. As history has shown, Hitler primarily killed people of other nations, while Stalin largely targeted his own. Hitler's Nazis killed people based on their ethnicity, driven by the delusional and criminal idea of the superiority of the Aryan race. In contrast, Stalin's communists were killing people based on their belonging to anti-revolutionary social classes, guided by the delusional and criminal theory of the supremacy of revolutionary expediency over formal legality. And the scale of mass repression in pre-war Germany and the USSR was simply incomparable. Stalin exterminated far more people. For instance, in just 1937-1938 alone, 800,000 so-called enemies of the people were shot or tortured to death during interrogations. But I know what you're going to say. These are numbers stupidly inflated by Western propaganda. And although the author of this comment thinks he made a bold statement here, this is where my brain starts to hurt. Inflated compared to what? You see, when you say inflated, it implies that you have something to compare it to. To claim that the figures regarding the human losses of the USSR during the repressions or World War II or all that shit are inflated, you'd need to have the actual archival numbers, right? I remember very well when on January 18, 2020, Vladimir Putin, during a meeting with World War II veterans, boldly declared, "We will shut the mouths of those who try to rewrite history." Those filthy mouths which some people overseas open to achieve their political goals, we will shut them with our truthful archival information. Putin spoke harshly and just a few months later issued a decree extending the secrecy of Soviet archives related to World War II until 2040. According to Russian law, a state secret is protected information, the disclosure of which could harm the security of the Russian Federation. Now just think about how archival documents on a war that ended 80 years ago, fought between Nazi Germany, a country that no longer exists, and the USSR, a country that also no longer exists, could harm the security of the Russian Federation. Did I already ask about your brain? Okay, I understand. You don't trust the inflated numbers from...
Also, one other thing. A lot of things said about both the World War II Germany and I mean, I'd like to react to a song, but it depends, because copyright may hit me very hard, or will basically end up muting the audio. What's the song? Or what song would you want me to react to? Okay. Okay, what's it called? Or could you give me a link? Okay, 1 second. So, the credit song? Alright, I guess I'll...
Hey, buddy! You okay? You look kind of tired. Do you need a moment? Don't worry, it's fine. I don't blame you for taking a rest after all that. Heck, I could go for a nice, relaxing defragmentation myself. But before you settle down, you up for a little survey to help us improve the park? Thanks for visiting Indigo Park. Hope all your dreams came true. If you've got some time and you're up for a lark, stick around for the Rambly review. I'm here to offer my best to each valuable guest I assist. And lots of happy feedback ensures I get to exist. Let's try it. Were you satisfied with the rides? Yes or no? Were you satisfied with your guide? I sure hope so. Do you plan to come back? Will I see you again? Did your experience convince you to tell a friend about us? Did I earn your trust? At Indigo Park, there is a stark contrast to everything I know this place should be. But out of the dark, you've given a spark of sunshine to this kingdom's faithful devotee. At Indigo Park, more than my remarks are mysteries. Even I don't know what we might find.
It's not bad. I wouldn't say it's amazing, but I also wouldn't say it was terrible. But, you know, I'm at the age of where I've heard a lot of really good video game music. And I can sort of see what they were trying to do. They was trying to do something somewhat similar to Still Alive in terms of concept. Not obviously different in terms of how the music is done and the lyrics are, and the the content of the lyrics, but especially with the animation and how they're doing things. Well, it's also more animated, but I don't know. I haven't played Indigo Park. I have it on my library, so you know, I can't exactly comment on it. Still, it's not bad, as I said, and it's also not like I'm going to go like, oh, you wasted my time, how could you? Like, no, it's fine. I may try this. I have a massive library of games, which consist of games I want to play and games I'm going to do for content. If I never buy another game, I still have I could probably play every single day or stream my games every single day for years and still probably not have stuff. Yeah. Since you're new and you don't know, I guess I shall show you the stupid amount of games I got. Which you also have to understand, 90% of the games I are bundles. I got as bundles when they were on sale, and I got it like for 90% off. And a lot of them are old games I only recently bought when they were on, or well, last few years bought. Okay. It's taking a while. I'll play the rest of the song while I wait.
But fight through the dark, and I'll be your spark of sunshine to get you out of any bind. That is, if you want to keep going. Oh, idea! I know all of this isn't fair to you. It's an awful lot to ask. But here comes Rambly Review Part 2 to sell you on our task. I'm here to view and assess each valuable guest as I learn. And lots of happy feedback ensures you're gonna return. I'm so happy you rode a ride and saw the show. I'm so happy to be your guide. More than you know. So come back anytime. I'd love to see you again. In all my thousands of days, I've never had a friend like you. At least I hope I do. At Indigo Park, there is a stark contrast to everything I know this place should be. But out of the dark, you've given a spark of sunshine to this kingdom's faithful devotee. At Indigo Park, more than my remarks are mysteries. Even I don't know what we might find. But fight through the dark, and I'll be your spark of sunshine to get you out of any bind. Till all my old friends are united again, and I won't feel so left behind. Okay, I'll let you go. See you next time, buddy. Please?
Alright. Well, I think it's loaded now. Or, well, yeah. Oh. Oh boy. I'll just go here. I do not know why it is not. Steam is not really responding. I'm guessing the server's off. The server must be offline then. Sorry. Either way, Kinetipet, I have over 400 games on Steam. I've hurt myself at my job, so I'm no longer able to work as much as I used to. But back when I actually could do work, I worked a lot and actually made a decent amount of money. And, you know, I spent a lot of my free time I spent a lot of that money on buying games and stuff. But either way, back to the video this is supposed to be a reaction of.
From the West. Let's look at the official numbers from Russia. For example, here's an official statement from the Russian parliament in April 2008 in regards to the famine of the 1930s. Let's read it together. As a result of the famine caused by forced collectivization, many regions of Russia, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, and Belarus suffered. Due to famine and diseases associated with malnutrition, approximately 7 million people died in these areas between 1932 and 1933. 7 million people killed in just 1 year, in just one single episode of Soviet history. Not due to war, nor a natural disaster of any kind, but solely because of one socialist experiment. In this 1 year, the USSR killed 2 million more Soviet civilians than those who died in 3 years under Nazi occupation on Soviet territory. That's also 1 million more than all the victims killed by the Nazis during the Holocaust. Just take a second to process this information. And I remind you, this is not some inflated Western propaganda number, but an official statement of Russia. So if you still think that comparing Nazis and Soviets who killed more of their own civilians than Nazis did is mentally ill, I don't know if any other facts can change your mind. This document is actually a great example of how trustworthy Russia is that you can check for yourself if you'd like. The document that I showed you is a scanned copy of the actual statement issued by the Russian parliament. However, to find it, you need to dig through the archive and locate it among thousands of other documents. But if you check the news section on the Russian parliament's official website regarding that same statement, you will notice that the 7 million figure has magically disappeared, along with any mention of the cause of the famine. Let's do one more thing. Imagine you didn't see the actual document that I showed you previously, and you're just reading this news. How many of you, after reading these neutrally written sentences about the famine, all of a sudden thought it was definitely an ethnic genocide? The Russians obviously think there should be quite a few, because literally the very next paragraph says that, "Don't you dare start thinking it was a genocide." Remember, Russian propaganda doesn't make you into an idiot. It is made for idiots. There's one more statement about the USSR in this comment under my video that I of course could not pass by. There's no freaking way that the country that endured such good life standards for their own people could be compared to Nazi Germany.
Foil
Such
Hat would
good
have something to
life
say about that.
Funny enough, this seemingly most ridiculous and obvious nonsense is actually the hardest to disprove. It's like a person pointing at the moon, calling it the sun, and asking you to prove otherwise. So, in regards to the good life standards, here is me taking the young pioneer's oath. A special day for me back then, as I was one step closer to becoming a true communist. Today, however, I really like the expression, "When I was a pioneer, I was told how great my life would be in 40 years. Now, 40 years later, I am told how great my life was when I was a pioneer." In 1986, I traveled with my father to Moscow, where he had some businesses in the Ministry of Defense. I was so excited for this amazing chance to go to the capital of our beloved motherland to see the Red Square and Lenin's mausoleum, as well as the spacecraft Vostok, on which Yuri Gagarin, whom I adored so much, made the first journey into outer space. And I saw them all, and even more. But do you know what was the most memorable moment of my trip to Moscow in 1986? It was tasting potato chips for the first time in my life. No, not because my parents never bought them for me, but because this kind of product simply didn't exist in my home city. Almost 40 years later, I still remember those chips in every detail. The stand at the Vedenha where we bought them, the packaging, and of course, the taste. How many of you who lived in the 80s remember the first time you tasted potato chips? I'm sure not that many, but I do. As well as the days when I tried my first bubblegum, yogurt, banana, and other products, or the day learning something like the existence of anesthesia during tooth extraction. That's how good the living standards were in the USSR, the land of socialist prosperity, where you could trade a Japanese VCR for a one-room apartment. Explaining the Soviet reality in just a few sentences is of course impossible, which is why I decided to start a second channel, Comrade Kroupsky, where I will cover the history of Russia, Imperial, Soviet, or whatever, without limiting myself to aviation topics like on paper.
1 second. Second channel. Oh, I am subscribed to that. I like how they shaved him. Shaved my poor boy. Oh, sorry. I'll close Indigo Park. Let's see.
Paper skies. On this new channel, we will discuss Russian history in general, as well as dive into specific episodes, whether it's examples of the so-called high standards of Soviet living, or topics like how and why Russia exaggerates its casualties in World War II, as I'm sure I've already received furious comments claiming that 27 million Soviet people were killed by the Nazis. The first episode will be released in a couple of days, but you can already watch it on my streaming service Nebula, and doing so will be the best way to support my work on these new videos. As I'm sure you know, YouTube's current policies as regards channels covering history are quite harsh. YouTube is more interested in the comfort side of the viewer's experience rather than its educational side, which, if we are talking about real history, can be brutal. and thus YouTube limits the visibility of such.
Yeah, I think the rest of this video is just him talking about why supporting Nebula is better for him. Which it is true, if you want to do accurate content about wars and stuff like that, you can't do it on YouTube because certain terms which are linked with, you know, certain political groups and certain governments during the Second World War are words that can get you in trouble. And it's also just, you know, you can't really show battles or blood or, you know, just... It's very restrictive. I have, I guess at most an hour. Okay, so I guess I'll try watching.
In this episode,
Okay, let's see. Guys, it's okay. Just going to try and okay. Oops. Sorry. I think I won't have time, but I'll try. Just going to update. Second, posting that. Nope. Oh. There we go. Did that? Okay, post. And 1 second, just going to check the notification. Somebody just liked my post. You know, it's kind of weird when people are reacting to your video or like liking a thing where it's just like, I am reacting to this, and people are just like, oh my god, I like that. And it's like, that's not exactly something I think that makes sense to like. But either way, I mean, I guess it's nice for the attention, but it just seems a little weird. All right, now
to explain in Russia, you will learn what Russia was in the past and why there is always a huge controversy regarding Russia's historical greatness, what its people were like, and why Vladimir Lenin, when talking about Russia, said, "We seized power in a country populated by half-savage or totally savage people."
Добрый вечер.
Здравствуйте, товарищи.
Men kissing live on screen?
Russia's past was admirable, its present is more than magnificent, and as for its future, it is beyond anything that the boldest mind can imagine. It is from this point of view that Russian history must be viewed and written. This famous quote regarding Russian historiography belongs to Alexander von Benkendorf, who, as the head of the Russian secret police, became known for establishing and overseeing strict censorship in Russia during the reign of Emperor Nicholas I. 200 years later, Russia no longer has emperors, at least officially, but overall the country still seems to live by the very same principles, although now formulated not in such exquisite words as Benkendorf's, but in dull bureaucratic language. This small excerpt is from a decree recently signed by Vladimir Putin on the fundamentals of the state policy in the field of historical enlightenment. The reason for the new decree is the same as it was 200 or 300 years ago: unfriendly foreign powers who diminish or simply refuse to recognize Russia's historical contributions to the development of world civilization. Putin's decree starts with a definition of Russia, and I think this can be a perfect topic for the first video on this channel, to discuss Russia and its so-called moral and cultural values, which, according to the document, have become the basis for Russia's enormous contribution to global development. I also suggest that we start by defining the terms and definitions. What is Russia? How many years has Russia existed? Where is it located? I believe that Russia, whose civilized history could possibly be discussed in the context of any significant cultural or human values of any kind, is actually a very short-lived country. Its history lasted for exactly 155 years, from 1760.
Ukraine actually existed before Russia, funnily enough. And there are parts of Russia that used to belong to Ukraine.
To 1917. The year 1917 marked the Socialist Revolution and the collapse of the Russian Empire, after which, up until today, the words cultural and human values became nothing more than a joke on Russian territory. And 1762 is the year when, after several decades of one after another rather questionable Russian empresses of half-German origin, Princess Sophia Augusta Frederica von Anhalt-Zerbst, who was ethnically 100% German, ascended the Russian throne and became the Russian Empress. She ruled the country for a long time, reigning for 34 years, and went down in history
It's the
as
holy hand
Catherine
grenade.
II, or Catherine the Great. It was she and her descendants who consistently married only German and sometimes Danish princesses. It was under their reign that the Russian Empire existed and developed for 155 years. And if you don't agree with such approach, just try to name a historically significant person or development in Russia before Catherine the Great. Any Russian writer before the Catherine the Great era, before the German Denis van Wiesen, any poet before Gavril Державин, any scientist, just anyone. Even someone like the so-called Russian mathematician Leonard Euler, or Russian explorers Vitus Bering, Adam Johann von Krusenstern, and Fabian Gottlieb von Bellingshausen. Even this kind of Russian would work. Just name anyone or anything significant that is related to art, science, culture, or education. There isn't anything. You can even consider anything related to the triumphs of Russian arms and the empire's territorial expansion. Of course, nowadays we have a different point of view on this, so call it conquest, annexation, enslavement, or acquisition of new territories, but this doesn't change its essence. And no, I'm not talking about Russia's expansion to the east.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm not commenting a lot. For things I've actually not seen before, I tend to watch quietly. Sorry about that.
Its vast empty territories populated by wild tribes. I mean the West, right bank Ukraine, southern Ukraine and Bessarabia, the Caucasus, Transcaucasia, Poland, the Baltic states and Finland. All those territories were once added to Russia under Catherine and her descendants. Before that, there was nothing really significant, absolutely nothing that could possibly be discussed in the context of Russia's significant role or contribution to the development of world civilization, in particular European civilization. And now that we have set the time frame, let's talk about geography. The thing is, there was not one but three Russias existing at the same time. Three significantly different Russias within the borders of one country. This is precisely what makes discussing Russia's historical past so complex and leads to frequent mistakes or sometimes deliberate manipulations. Because anyone can take examples, numbers, or historical facts from the life of one of these three Russias, which differed extensively, and then build whatever comparison and conclusions they want. Let's look at this map taken from the results of the 1897 Russian Empire census, the first and only census conducted in the Russian Empire. Here on the population density map, we see that back then there was a gigantic territory to the east of the Ural Mountains, Siberia and Russian Far East, which were virtually uninhabited. The small dark brown spots on this map represent a population density similar to the United States of that time period. Back then in the USA there lived slightly fewer than 90 million people in a vast territory. So even when compared with the population density of the US, a virtually empty country at the time, we see only a few small areas in this part of Russia with brown or dark brown shading showing a comparable population. The rest of the territory has a density of 1 to 5 people per square kilometer, or even less than 1, meaning it was simply a lifeless desert. But this is the Asian part of Russia. There was also the European part. So here is the map of population density in the European part of Russia, and I suggest we take a look at these areas. First of all, since we're talking about Russia and the Russian...
This is really interesting so far, but I don't know if it's good reaction content.
contribution to human civilization, for the purpose of our analysis, I'm leaving out the Kingdom of Poland, the Baltic states, Finland, Bessarabia, and Caucasus. I'm only considering the territories populated by what the 1897 census called Russians in general, which consisted of Russians, Ukrainians, and Belarusians. Here I'm not discussing the correctness of such a grouping, I'm only using it in accordance with the historiographical approach of Vladimir Putin and his believers. Now let's take a look at this table showing the average population density in other countries during approximately the same time period. There is absolutely no sense in comparing Russia with the numbers from the UK, Italy, or Germany, so let's compare it with these two countries, Austria, Hungary, and France. Both had large territories and, similar to Russia, a significant agricultural industry. The Austro-Hungarian Empire in particular could be a good comparison. A huge country back then that, in addition to Austria and Hungary, included the territories of modern Czechia, Slovakia, Poland, Ukraine, Romania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Slovenia and Croatia. One of Europe's major powers at the time, Austria-Hungary was geographically the second largest country in Europe. So, even comparing with the population density of the immense and spacious Austro-Hungarian...
I'm thinking that this might be a poor video to react to. I mean, I find this interesting, but I'm shutting up because I don't have anything to really add or things that I really feel like interjecting on, because as I said, I have not seen this one, and there are not times where I feel like I can interject because I'm completely ignorant of this subject. And while at the rate we're going, I'd definitely be able to finish it on time, I don't know if I would be able to actually add enough of it to the point at which I would be just, well, literally stealing this person, like, I'm sorry, Comrade Kroupsky's content, which I don't want to do. Person, do you find this video interesting? If you think it's interesting, I'll continue reacting to it, but as I said, currently I feel more like I'm just stealing content, because I'm not really adding much commentary or much of anything. I'm just sort of blankly staring. I'm sorry, person, you have a brain, and I'm making you use it. As the one person who comments the most frequently on my, or the one of you who comments the most frequently, I'm asking you, anyone else who's watching, anyone else who's lurking, who wants to say comment on it too, can answer. You don't find this interesting? Well, if you don't, that's fine. A streamer has to be able to pick content that his followers like, especially if you're doing reaction content. I'm sorry, person, you have an opinion, and I'm forcing you to use it. Think, damn you! Do it! I know you can! Even if you don't want to, I'm going to peer pressure and gaslight you until you do. You know, like any decent person would. Alright, enough of me being dramatic. It's a yes or no question, person. It's not like I'm going to get indignant if you don't like it. Is this content, or is this video interesting to you, or does it feel like you're watching history class and you're not into history? Or at least not into this kind of history. I'm not going to be offended if you say you're not interested in it. I can just move on to something else. I'm just going to check to see if... Why isn't Steam working? Person, I did not make this video, and I do not know the person who made it personally. So, I don't know. You know, at the same time, waffling about too much does also kind of make it feel like you really just don't care. Because it's a simple question. I'm not asking for your social security information. We'll get that. I'll get that off stream, person. It's okay. You can give me all your private stuff off. I will expose my terrible person and like persona off stream so that no one can do it. But yeah. So you're saying you don't enjoy this video? Okay. Well, I'm going to interpret you saying no as that, which, you know. As I said, this is sort of a long video, and I'm not sure that anyone... Well, I'm being too quiet. I'll watch it later. Let's see. What was it? Russian Navy, Japan. Here it is. The dumbest Russian voyage no one talks about.
There are an abundant...
Yeah, I definitely think I'll be able to finish this in the time I have left until I have to leave to work. Why is... What part of it? Apparently, something about this Twitch does not like. That's frustrating. Or whatever. Okay, so just pasting there. This is a much more fun story. I'm sorry, I'm trying to, There we go. I wanted to change the title so that people would know. Apparently, calling something the dumbest goes against Twitch's moderation policy. Trying to okay. That was stupid. I had to find a way to make it so that I could actually change it to this. So, here it is. BlueJay is an interesting creator. Yeah. Calling something the fact that Twitch does, like, is like, oh no, you can't say something dumb. I don't know, that's stupid. Alright, but yeah.
Some iconic combinations out there, like spaghetti and meatballs, a sorority girl in a white Jeep, or depression and alcoholism. But like US presidents and convertibles, not everything can be a match made in heaven. And as much as Mother Russia would love to dominate the high seas, nearly landlocked nations and stellar navies don't exactly go hand in hand. But for all the Russian Navy's dismal, underwhelming...
Actually, one second. I need to go back to there to show you like this. So, yeah, to emphasize how bad, like, you know, it is for Russia for their navy. It's just like their access to the Atlantic is easily blocked for them through like these, like by their neighbors here, and then in the Arctic, the population is low, and during certain parts of the year, the water is completely frozen, which means they can't get ships out. Also, similar issues on that side where they have limited population density, and also China and the US. But yeah.
Hand in hand. But for all the Russian Navy's dismal, underwhelming, pathetic lack of glory in the early 20th century, it's always important to look on the bright side. Like how it gives me good YouTube content. So on today's episode, I'm going to learn you all about the misadventures of the Russian Baltic Fleet. It's the turn of the 20th century, and what better way to kick off a new era than expansion? Russia is cold, which is great for things like stopping Nazis and badass TikToks, but not ideal for ports. Having your port turn to ice every winter is what those of us more versed in nautical terms would call not very cash money. The Russian Empire notices China has a pretty nifty port with, get this, warm water. However, there's this pesky little thing called a border in the way. But that's okay, China isn't European, it's not a real country, so Russia takes control and gets the Qing to lease them the port. Japan doesn't like what they see, so they meet with Russia and are all like,
hey, vodka boy, invading China is our thing.
But Russia won't share, leaving diplomacy dead in the water. But that's okay, the new DLC just dropped and everyone's just itching to try out their new toys. So the Japanese attack Port Arthur, kicking off the Russo-Japanese War. Fast forward a few battles, and the Russians are losing pretty badly. So the Tsar authorizes quite the preposterous proposal of sending the Russian Baltic Fleet to reinforce the East. And you may be wondering, but BlueJay, what's so preposterous about sending reinforcements? Well, kiddo, the Baltic part of Russian Baltic Fleet means it operates in, get this, the Baltic. And as we learned earlier, boats don't like ice, so you can't go this way to Port Arthur, meaning the Tsar authorized a plan for an 18,000-mile journey around the world, which is 29,000 kilometers, or 1,140,480,000 gumballs. The voyage was also a logistical nightmare, as the Russians didn't have any holdings in Africa or South Asia to...
Gumballs, a truly respectable increment of measurement.
fuel along the way. Add that to the fact that the fleet spent months at a time frozen in port, so the crew of mostly uneducated peasants couldn't tell you the difference between a bowline knot and a porcelain pot. This group of inexperienced conscripts is put under the command of Admiral Rozhitsvensky, a man so prone to anger that his staff made sure to keep a large supply of binoculars at the ready due to how often he would throw them overboard. But hey, fuck it, what better way to learn than a trial by fire, right? So they set sail on their epic quest to turn the tide of the war and bring glory to the motherland. And immediately the flagship runs aground and a cruiser loses its anchor. While they waited for the flagship to refloat, a destroyer forgot friendly fire was on and rammed into a battleship, prompting it to return for repairs. Don't worry men, surely this can't be foreshadowing. As the fleet pushed on, a growing hysteria spread amongst the crew. They were afraid that at any second they'd be ambushed by Japanese torpedo boats. By Denmark. This is where the war is if you forgot. But the crewmen didn't have time to worry about things as frivolous as logic, so when two fishermen approached the fleet to deliver a message, they opened fire. The two fishermen survived the false alarm without a scratch thanks to the horrible standards of the Russian gunnery. As for their message, they informed Rear Admiral Rozhitsvensky that he had been promoted to Vice Admiral. Iron this. This wouldn't be the only false alarm, as later another ship signaled that she was under attack by 8 Japanese torpedo boats, only to find out that there were 0 Japanese torpedo boats. There was just nothing there. Having survived the Baltic, our heroes made their way towards Britain, where they encountered a small group of fishing trawlers at Dogger Bank. But surely by now our skittish sailors have learned their lesson. Ninjas! Chaos ensued as the Russians laid down hellfire upon the unsuspecting fishermen. The Russians are going bonkers. Some run around the deck aimlessly waving cutlasses to repel imaginary boarding parties, while others just cuddle up on the deck with life jackets, accepting their demise. Keep it up, men! These Japanese have horrendous aim, Igor. We haven't even taken a hit. But hey, at least this time we made sure they weren't fishermen first. We're shooting at fishermen, aren't we? Definitely a possibility, sir. Well, at least we didn't fire on our own ships, killing a sailor and Russian Orthodox priest. The British trawler fleet were sitting ducks as their nets in the water prevented a hasty escape, and the Russians fired at them for 20 minutes before realizing their mistake. While this sounds like the setup for a massacre, you forget our heroes are about as effective as a guy holding a fish on Tinder, sinking only 1 trawler and damaging 2 of their own ships. The battleship Oriole really captured the spirit of a TikTok pickup artist, reportedly shooting 500 shots without scoring a single hit. 2 fishermen and 2 Russians died in the mayhem, so at least the survivors can brag at the local pub that they tied with the Russian Navy. This event became known as the Dogger Bank incident and nearly ignited a war between Russia and Britain. The Brits just settled for revoking their access to the Suez Canal, forcing the Russians to make a slight tweak in their course. The slow, coal-powered fleet made its way towards Africa, attacking more civilians and cutting underwater telegraph cables along the way. They met up with some German supply ships to refuel due to the aforementioned lack of African holdings to make port. What nice friends, those Germans. I'm sure the relationship will last. Africa's pretty big, almost as big as my self-loathing, so they took on double loads of coal and kept giant piles of the stuff just sitting on deck. Definitely the kind of thing to land you an EPA audit. But it's not like any sailors were going to die from black lung, except for the ones who did. Morale is low, so the Russian crew decides to lift their spirits by treating themselves to the exotic pets of Madagascar. Alright men, you all can— hey Igor, stop sniffing glue for a sec buddy. You all can go to shore and pick out one thing to bring back with you. Nothing too crazy, like snakes or crocodiles. What did I say? Sir, I can explain. Watch it throw back the shot at Tito's. The ship became a floating zoo as the crew brought on a bunch of animals to roam the deck freely, including a crocodile and a venomous snake, which apparently took a liking for vodka. Panic followed shortly when the snake wrapped itself around guns and bit a commanding officer. One sailor gifted the admiral a parrot, which soon took after his rather extensive vocabulary of Russian curses. The flagship soon became overrun with chameleons who would frequently go missing due to their ability to seamlessly camouflage. Hey Igor, have you seen Comrade Camo? I can't find the little guy anywhere. No, I don't think so. Have you seen him private? Yeah, I don't think he's seen him either. But a good zoo isn't complete without an underwater—
Chameleons do not blend into, do not have the ability to, like, seamlessly transition to any environment in terms of their color or, like, camouflage themselves like that. They naturally tend to be the color or a color of what they tend to be around. And then because of the pigments in their skin, they have the ability to go from being, I'm blended into this tree or branch or leaf, to I am bright scarlet red. And that's a way for them to basically either try to show I'm angry or scare something away and hopefully it can get away, because chameleons aren't really fast or known for speed. Octopus can actually blend in with their backgrounds, and they can also alter their skin to match the texture of what they're blending in with, which is rather fascinating to me.
Exhibit. And luckily for them, the cooling plant on their refrigeration ship broke down, forcing them to dump all their meat into the ocean and giving them a nice following of sharks. At one point, the fleet was holding one of many funerals for a sailor who died of illness. During the ceremony, the Kamchatka fired a gun salute. Excellent work, gentlemen. Hey, say, you boys did make sure to load blanks, right? Yes, sir. Yeah. Igor, you're looking kinda pale there, buddy. After some more shenanigans, like foiling a mutiny and receiving a shipment of fur boots and coats instead of ammo, Admiral Rozhetsvensky realized that they were approaching Japan. Ah shit, that's right, I didn't train them. So he decided to run some gunnery practice on a stationary target. Miraculously, our group of misfits managed to score a single hit on the ship towing the target. But hey, potato potato. At long last, the Baltic fleet closes in on Japan, approaching the Tsushima Strait during the night. The fleet extinguishes their lights to maintain stealth, all except for the Orel, which, as a hospital ship, kept them burning in accordance with the rules of war. The Orel comes upon a Japanese ship in the dark. And finally, after an extensive list of false alarms attacking fishermen and merchants alike across half of the high seas, they come across an actual Japanese vessel and determine it to be Russian, so they use their lights to communicate with it.
Hey, be careful of the other Russian vessels around me. We're sneaking up on the Japanese. In the dark, don't tell anyone.
The Battle of Tsushima ensues. While our gallant sailors hold their own against the Japan, the Baltic fleet was decimated. 4,000 Russians die, with an additional 7,300 taken prisoner, compared to roughly 100 Japanese deaths. This effectively ended the war, marking the first time in history that an Eastern power defeated a European one.
Well, yes, that is our dear. Well, yes, that is our dear Teddy Roosevelt.
That an Eastern power defeated a European one. Way to go, buddy. Let's add that one to the scoreboard. Oh dear. So, in conclusion, the Russian Baltic fleet's odyssey around the world is a tale full of shenanigans and blunders, with our troublemaking peasant crew racking up quite the body count of innocent civilians and friendlies before seeing an actual enemy. And yes, while they may have attacked ships from practically every global power, disabled cities' communication grids, killed fellow sailors with gross negligence of safety practices, nearly ignited a major European war, and were about as accurate as Helen Keller playing laser tag, they also taught a snake to drink vodka. 9 out of 10 stars.
So, person, what did you think about that video? Actually, I won't. You didn't find it funny at all? Like, just how inept they were? You don't find it interesting, like how potentially inept a military group or a fleet could possibly be? I guess you weren't really all that interested by it. I don't know, I found it sort of amusing the first time I watched it. That is not normal. I'm sorry, person, but that's not how this is supposed to work. Shooting... Person, if that sounds something normal to you, then I'm worried about you and the people that you spend time with in real life. That's just like... That should not be normal. that is not normal. That is like just, oh, you know, when you were like, can you imagine another military doing that? Just like firing on another nation, even if it's an accident, that would cause a huge uproar. And the fact that, you know, as they said, they were firing at unarmed fishing boats for 20 minutes, and two fishermen died, but 2 Russian sailors also died. What did the sailors die from? It could only be friendly fire. Do you know how embarrassing that is? When you have a fleet going up against three fishing vessels, and you tie for, like, you know, casualties. That's embarrassing. You better believe those fishermen at the pub would be like being ultra smug about all of it. I mean, they might be a bit scared, but I mean, like, oh, we tied with tied with the Russian Navy. Because think about what would have happened if we had weapons. And what's worse is they were apparently stationary because of their nets. It's so stupid. But yeah. I'm sorry, I just thought I heard something really weird. But yeah. Having a military that works and functions is an important thing to have. Especially when it comes to making sure that they actually work together. 1 second. They actually, you know, oops, look who's looking away. There we go. Making sure that they actually function and work together. Which, you know, sounds like that part sounds like it's common sense, but apparently it's not. China and Russia have their militaries, and their branches of their militaries are highly antagonistic towards each other. Which is also one of the reasons why Russia is doing so poorly in Ukraine. Because of, well, there's a lot of reasons why they're doing poorly. But primarily one of them being the fact that Putin dedicated a lot of money to maintaining and fixing the equipment and vehicles and weapons, and then it all got embezzled away. And the fact that the people in charge of the bases that managed the weapons and stockpiles of stuff sold a lot of things. And people are like, corruption exists everywhere. There are different levels of corruption. Somebody who skimps a little bit off the top and embezzle some money is different than somebody that is, you know, just outright selling national secrets, selling a bunch of equipment, and then, you know, doing a bunch of other things which sabotages the effectiveness of the military. It's on a different level. It's kind of like a 5-year-old stealing a lollipop is technically the same as stealing a Ferrari, because, you know, they're both stealing things that don't belong to them, but the magnitude of what's being stolen is much different. Like, you could laugh off the little kid, like, you know, taking a lollipop or something, but someone stealing a Lamborghini or like a Ferrari, that's not just it's okay, you little scamp thing. That's a no. It's just like, I don't know. Either way. Part of me would like to potentially stream a little more, but at the same time, I don't think I have enough to react to another video. And, you know, I'm not sure if it would be fun to have this be like a just streaming, a just chatting stream. I mean, finally I have 3 viewers, and it's important for me to increase my view count if I can. So, you know, I'm tempted to continue on, but I don't know. How are you feeling, person? Are you doing a bit better than you were before? You don't need to go into personal things, just I hope you're feeling a bit better, because you were not feeling great a while ago. Alright, that's good to hear. I won't go into personal details or ask questions about that, because that's not something to talk about during stream. Just, it's nice to hear that you're doing a bit better. I'm sorry, just sort of thinking about whether I should, what topic to think about. I don't want to add something too different to the stream, because it's better when the stream has just one singular theme. I guess I'll talk about food, since I'm a fat person and I love food. I mean, some people would argue I'm not that big, but you know. When you're too tired to do stuff and then you eat because you're stressed, you gain weight. I mean, I'm absolutely not morbid or anything like that, but you know. I don't know why I'm saying that. I should lose weight, but it's a little hard, especially with how tired I've been. But anyways, changing to a less depressing subject. I tried a place that did soba. Have you ever had soba before? Person. Do you know what it is, at least? Oh, good. The one I went to had a, I think it's, 1 second. Let me check. Oops, wrong thing. It's, what is it called? It's called Abura Soba, what I tried. Or the place I went to, or something like that, I guess. And it's like, I guess it's like, or at least according to them, it's like soupless ramen, is what they say. It's like, I am reading directly from a description that a place gave. Which it is, what is Abura Soba? Abura Soba can be described as soupless ramen, with flavors coming from a blend of sauce and oil. Now let's see, this particular one's homemade thick noodles and sauces, imported from Japan, are made to perfectly complement each other. We believe what makes Abura Soba fun is endless possibilities of toppings, making it always fun to experiment with different combinations each time. 1 second. Like, second, just checking. This is, I'm checking one of the things, so let's see. For example, this is a place in one of the places in Maryland which does it. Or like one of the Maryland locations. This place does, like, you know, the soba, which is up here, where you can get the toppings and stuff that they have. They also do ramen and donburi. Though I tried one of these, I think at like one of the locations when I visited, around where I used to live. And basically I got like this thing here, the roast beef one, which was really good. I think that, I thought it was, it's yogurt. That's weird. It almost tasted like horseradish. But yes, that's a raw egg on top. As long as you eat it quickly, it's actually rather nice. I'm not outside of the one with the raw egg, because I know that's an acquired taste. Person, does this look good to you, or is it one of those things that looks sort of weird? When I had it, it tasted good. Though, I was trying it after I tried something else. I got something at a different place, and I was still very hungry afterwards, so I just got a bowl. But yeah. There's also a different conveyor belt sushi place that opened up near where, I guess, around the area of one of these too. But yeah. Checking out the Rockville location. Because, you know, if I ever go back, it might be nice to try this place out again. If I'm like, you know, visiting friends or something. My friends like this type of stuff too, and they trust me when it comes to looking for food and trying out different stuff. But yeah. They have stuff like, you know, the minced pork, they have the chicken teriyaki, the one that you're unlikely to see, which is Old Bay Epi, which is basically Old Bay is a Maryland classic seasoning that's used for seafood, crabs, and it also goes really well on French fries or crisps, I guess, or not, or chips. It does also, it's true, it does also go very well on chips or what we call, Americans call chips, and what you'd call crisps as well. It also goes pretty well on popcorn. Then they have sukiyaki, which is, you know, sliced marinated beef. They have like a chicken katsu curry, or like, you know, like a fried, or wait, is it fried chicken? I can't tell. It looks like it's katsu, but I guess it's not. It's probably just a chicken breast that's been cooked. And they even got a vegan option. Vegan food can be tasty, actually. It's just that white people tend to ruin it. Because they just make it as bland as possible. There's a lot of tasty things that are vegan. It's just that most of the time people think like, oh, you just steamed this vegetable without any seasoning or flavor. And that's the only seasoning this gets is water. Not even adding salt. And it's just like, it's healthy for you. It tastes disgusting. Just boiling something in water does not make it taste good. If it tastes good, it's because the thing you boiled tasted good to start with. It probably would taste better with some salt. I liked broccoli. Right, but yeah, this is for like the Maryland location. Or specifically the Rockville, Maryland location. But yeah, they only have 3 different ramens, and technically they use the same base. They're tonkatsu, or pork broth. I think ton means pig, or refers to pig meat. I don't know. And then, you know, they've got like donbori, which is just like over rice. Though it is a small portion. I think you told me, but it's been a while. So, have you ever had like ramen or donbori person? And I don't mean cup ramen. Or cup noodle, or whatever you... God, what is the kind that you have? Because if I remember correctly, the cup noodle that is native to the United Kingdom is considered by a lot of people to be one of the grossest instant cup noodles. I wouldn't say in the world, but like by a lot of different people. Korea actually makes really good ones. 1 second. This is a page I set up to plan out things to go to when I visit my friend. So all the locations are in the Rockville area. Let's see. I am shamelessly dragging this out so that I can, you know, try to increase my viewer average. But yes, there are Korean noodles tend to be better. Shin ramen I like, though I prefer Shin Gold, I think, to Shin Black. Shin Gold is the chicken ramen. Buldak. I like Buldak. The Buldak ramen. However, person, I do not recommend you try Buldak. It will murder you. It is you're familiar with the Korean fire noodles, right? Because this is the Korean fire noodle, the Buldak. There's 2 levels, regular, and then there's a 2X, and I think there's a 4X. And it's technically Samyang spicy pot. Really. I did not see a response. But yeah. I actually like the taste of the 2X. It's good. I mean, it's spicy. I'm not going to be one of those people who's like, I can eat the 2X without reacting at all. Like, no, I will. You can hear me breathing. And I'm careful because while my mouth and body can handle it, if you ever get really spicy oil from a food on your skin, it hurts. And the problem is if you get it on your fingers and then or hands and then you wipe your eye, you then have flaming hot, like, burning substance all over your eye. And I don't care who you are. You can't exactly train up your eye to deal with, like, the spicy sensation. Oh, man. But yeah, it is really good. Let's see. Fire noodles. Let's see. 1 second. What in the world? I don't. This is on private, so it's just showing popular stuff since I don't really use it. Let's see. Bulldog ramen. Let's see. As I said, I think there is like a higher version of it. Maybe you can handle it. Before you try the 2X, try the regular black bag, or maybe try the try one of the less spicy flavors, or ones, because that's the like the carbonara or the cheese one. Like,
let's make bulldog carbonara ramen.
you see.
So you may have seen my video trying the cup version of these, but today we're going to try.
So
I'm going to add 2 of these packets. 1 and 2.
Add in the enoki mushroom. I'm going to boil these eggs for 5 minutes.
Now we're just going to drain some of the water.
Some milk. Now time to add the spice packets. Add the cheese.
I'm going to add both of the spicy packets. Don't want to waste a drop.
Now let's give it all a mix.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit of sesame oil and plenty of mozzarella cheese. Put
That
the
should
lid
be
on that
good.
For a little bit. Muffins and waffles are hungry. This looks so good. Some sesame seeds.
So, person, would you like to eat muffins and waffles? I bet they taste good. Goodness. Yes, I am a monster. Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Here is the end result.
Oh my, that sound.
Let's make bulldog cup.
What in the world? Yeah, but here. The noodles are a lot better. It's not a thing where even Japan actually thinks that the Korean noodles are better, but like, or these types of things are better. Look at that. That was just a weird video. But yeah, what is up with that hair? No, sorry. It's not exactly my style, but it's people don't need to live by my thing, or my standards, or anything like that. I don't know. I have come across people who it's just like, you know, they've been like, where they say something like, "Oh, tell me what you think about how I am." I'm like, you're fine. I'm just not exactly into that style or the way you dress. And then it's like, you don't need to tell me what to. Like, you asked my opinion. I'm not saying you need to live by my standards. It's always interesting because those people are also just the kind of person like, oh, well, you know, the person I'm into has to be into what I'm in, or else, you know, they're sexist. Which I've come across those types of people too, where it's just like, nope, I don't see you in a romantic way. I'm sorry, and it's like, how could you? I don't know. In my life, I've met a lot of really good people and a lot of really bad people, and it's kind of made my view of people weird. which, you know, it's always... like, you know, the kind of... It's also... Hilariously, the women who also complain about that stuff are also the ones who often, like, in order to date me, you need to be 6 foot tall, you need to be muscular, have a six-pack, you need to make 6 figures, and you need to be handsome. And it's just like... the person's like, I like skinnier people. And also, I forgot, you need to have a massive dick! And then it's just like, the other person's like, I wish you'd lose a little bit, like, I don't like people who are overweight. And I'm like, ah! The pig! And it's just like, but you said a lot more superficial things. It's just, no. I know it's in terms of women, those women are a very small amount. But, you know, it's still important to pull it out. Because I've seen a bunch of people try to support them, like, yes, you go, queen. And it's just like, why? Why are you acting like that's a smart thing to do, to be a trash person online? It doesn't matter what your gender is. If you're a horrible person, you're a horrible person. Being a terrible person is not limited to just white men or men. But yeah, I'm not saying that men can't be terrible people. There are a lot of terrible men. It's just that it's not exclusive. Well, yes, indeed. It's just like how women can't have any kind of privilege. Because men have all the privilege, don't you know? Even though there's a number of privileges that women have which people don't like to talk about. Such as, if a woman walks up and slaps a man, a lot of people aren't going to react to that. Or if they do, they're going to be, what did that guy do? He probably did something to deserve it. I mean, unless, you know, the people are friends with the guy and know he didn't do anything and know that the other person's crazy. But outside of that, random woman, random guy that onlookers don't know, woman that slaps man, it's just like, he probably deserved it. Man does anything to woman, and it's just like, he's a monster. I'm not saying you should hit people, but just acknowledge that there is. Yes, the gamer word is bad. I probably don't have time, but let's see. I don't have time for that. It's a half an hour. It's almost an hour long, and I have to leave in a minute. But, yeah. It's a problem where when a bunch of kids get online and then they hear stuff where it's just like, oh, this is a bad word. And it's like, bad words are... No, well, either way, I have to actually go. Thank you for posting it, and once again, thanks for Canetapet for following, and I'll try to upload a bit more. I really have to go. Like, I'll try to stream later. I hope that you all have a great day, and depending on after work, I might stream again, or I might do something. Thanks again, and goodbye for real. Bye-bye.